Hello, everyone. Sorry, Bethany, we're starting now. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sharon Walpole from Career Map, and I'm delighted to be hosting this live event with our guests from JTL, who've just popped up now. We're going to be talking about plumbing and electrician apprenticeships. This session and all of our sessions are recorded and can be found on our website at Career Map Live. There will be a Q&A following the presentation, so feel free to prop your questions into the chat box at any time, and we'll get them answered shortly. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Nikki. You want to give a wave there, Nikki? Who will be doing some presenting, and Lindsay, who will be answering questions in the chat.
Evening, everyone.
And we also have Will, who's there answering questions and general technical support, which is great. So this is everybody from JTL. I'm going to hand over to them now, and I will see you all shortly during the Q&A. Speak to you soon.
Hi there. We're actually going to start by playing a video for you, which will be followed by a question and answer session. So it's just about 15 minutes long, but that will cover probably an awful lot of the questions that you already have. But feel free to use the chat in between, and myself and my colleagues will try and answer any questions as we go through. And then at the end, we'll sort of pick up any that haven't been responded to as well. So sit tight for a few minutes and I will play the video now for you.
You need to turn your video off, Nikki.
Welcome to our presentation, JTL Apprenticeships, the gateway to a rewarding lifelong career in building services engineering. We'd like to begin with a short film to introduce you to who we are and what we do.
We are JTL. JTL is a not-for-profit charity and one of the largest work-based learning providers in the UK. We have been providing work-based learning for over 30 years. We specialise in apprenticeship training to the building services engineering sector. Our apprentices are trained to a professional standard, providing the skills they need to pursue lifelong careers. We have brought together thousands of businesses and learners who have all benefited from apprenticeship training. Our apprenticeship courses have opened up new careers for electricians, plumbers, heating engineers, and many more skilled professionals. We also help professionals who already work in the industry by offering continued professional development. From our headquarters in Orpington and our national JTL training centres, we train thousands of apprentices each year. We have trained around 60,000 apprentices over our 30-year history. With more than 390 staff, including dedicated training officers, we work closely with our apprentices and over 3,500 employers across the country. JTL also works with around 100 partner colleges in England to deliver apprenticeship training. Since 1990, we have been driven by one vision: to be the training organisation of choice to the building services engineering sector. Stay connected with us and keep up to date with our latest news and activities on social media. Visit our website for more information about JTL and our apprenticeships at www.jtltraining.com.
So, now you know a bit about us, let's find out more about the apprenticeship programmes we offer. What is an apprenticeship? Apprenticeships are government-funded programmes that include a paid job. They involve on and off the job training, incorporating both technical knowledge and practical performance. Apprenticeships are a nationally recognised qualification. Apprenticeships also contain transferable skills modules. Apprenticeships are available to anyone aged 16 and over. The benefits of an apprenticeship. You can earn while you learn. Starting salaries are in the region of £21,000 per year for electricians, but earnings up to £32,000 and beyond are achievable once fully qualified. There's no debt at the end of the apprenticeship. You will gain valuable work experience and learn firsthand from experienced tradespeople. You will also gain practical skills and theoretical knowledge as part of your studies. University is still an option after an apprenticeship. Sometimes an employer will fund a university course. Entry requirements. JTL do expect you to meet certain criteria such as passing our online assessment tests and also possessing GCSEs in Maths and English at grade C or grade 4 or higher or equivalent. However, you can work towards achieving your level 2 qualifications in Maths and English as part of your apprenticeship. These level 2 qualifications will need to be achieved before an endpoint assessment is taken, usually in year 4 of the apprenticeship. You can apply for an apprenticeship while you're still in education, but you need to have left before you can start with us. As a rule of thumb, you must have left compulsory education after the last Friday in June of the academic year in which you are applying. You will also need an employer before you can start an apprenticeship, although you can apply before you have arranged one. Here's a brief summary of the apprenticeship courses we offer. At JTL we offer the following apprenticeships: Electrical Engineering at Level 3, Plumbing and Domestic Heating at Level 3, Building Services Engineering at Levels 2 and 3, Gas Engineering Operative at Level 3, Fire Emergency and Security Systems at Level 3, and Property Maintenance Operative at Level 2. The Electrical Engineering Level 3 Advanced Apprenticeship lasts 4 years and covers a wide range of units including health and safety in the workplace, the installation and maintenance of electrical systems, and how to diagnose and correct faults. Qualified electricians will install, maintain and repair electrical systems and inspect and test electrical installations. An endpoint assessment and portfolio of evidence must be passed to achieve the apprenticeship. The qualification achieved on successful completion of this apprenticeship is the Level 3 Electrotechnical Qualification in Installation or in Maintenance. The Plumbing and Domestic Heating Level 3 apprenticeship usually takes 48 months, which is 4 years, to complete. This apprenticeship allows you to train for several career roles in plumbing at the same time, such as plumber, domestic heating installer or engineer, and plumbing and domestic heating installer or engineer. Plumbing and domestic heating technicians plan, select, install, service, commission and maintain all aspects of plumbing and heating systems. The training is coupled with Maths and English and includes end-of-year phase tests throughout the 4-year course. All learners must complete a standard endpoint assessment, or EPA, to achieve the Level 3 apprenticeship. We offer 3 apprenticeship courses in Building Services Engineering at Level 2 and Level 3. These are Building Services Engineering Installer at Level 2, Building Services Engineering Craftsperson at Level 3, and Building Services Engineering Service Maintenance Engineer, which has no mandatory qualification. Building Services Engineers work on large-scale industrial and commercial systems such as heating, chilled water, hot water and cold water systems found in office blocks, factories, schools and hospitals. Building Service Engineering apprenticeships cover 2 distinct job roles, that of an installer and of a craftsperson. An installer installs components of these systems. They have a basic knowledge of these systems and how the components within them relate to each other. A craftsperson undertakes the installation, testing, pre-commissioning, commissioning and decommissioning of these systems. They have a detailed knowledge of how these systems operate. Service and maintenance engineers, on the other hand, play a key role in planning and completing a range of maintenance work on these systems. Gas Engineering Operative Level 3 Apprenticeship. Gas engineers install and maintain gas appliances in a domestic or non-domestic setting. Gas appliances can include central heating boilers, unvented hot water storage, ducted air heaters, cookers, and alternative fuel, for example. The course lasts for 2 to 3 years, depending on the levels of experience the learner already has. Once qualified as a gas engineer, learners will be registered on the Gas Safe Register as competent to undertake work on at least 4 appliances. Fire Emergency and Security Systems Level 3 Apprenticeship. This apprenticeship will provide apprentices with a clear pathway towards becoming a fully qualified technician, engineer or installer of alarm, fire, emergency and security systems. The typical completion time of this course is 36 months. Learners can choose a specific pathway in one of the 4 options to suit their individual careers. These are fire, security, fire and emergency lighting, and fire and security. By the end of the apprenticeship, the apprentice will have satisfied the requirements for EngTech registration by the Engineering Council. The course is currently delivered in 2 locations, in the Midlands and in Essex. The Property Maintenance Operative Level 2 Apprenticeship is designed for those wishing to gain the technical knowledge and practical skills required to work within the property maintenance industry, in job roles like maintenance assistant, facilities assistant, maintenance technician, caretaker or janitor. Property maintenance operatives work in a wide variety of sectors including housing, healthcare, social care, hospitality, education, leisure and retail. Their main role is to ensure the properties they maintain are in a good condition and that everything works properly and meets health and safety guidelines. The qualification is the City and Guilds Level 2 Diploma in Property Maintenance, which is professionally recognised by the British Institute of Facilities Management and provides associate membership for the apprentice while studying. The availability of this course is currently limited to specific areas of the country, so please contact us for details of course locations or to express your interest. JTL also offers traineeships. Traineeships are a stepping stone onto an apprenticeship and are a great way for you to discover if you want to progress to an apprenticeship in a particular trade. They last for 10 weeks on average, with around 6 weeks spent in the classroom, where you will learn about good CV writing, interview skills, health and safety knowledge, and knowledge of the relevant industries, amongst other things. You will then have around 4 weeks work experience with an employer, where you will begin to learn some on-the-job practical knowledge. Traineeships are currently available through JTL in Birmingham, Nottingham, Oxford, and in Ashford and Orpington in Kent. How we teach. JTL has its own training centres across the country and has partnerships with over 100 colleges across England and Wales. The main apprenticeship start dates are in September and in January to coincide with college intakes, but we recruit throughout the year. Teaching is delivered in either a block release or day release format. Each apprentice has an experienced training officer dedicated to supporting them through the apprenticeship. All apprentices will develop a portfolio of their work over the course of their apprenticeship. Let's find out what some of our apprentices think of their training.
So far, I think my apprenticeship has been going really well and I've been really enjoying it.
My apprenticeship so far has been really good. I've learnt a lot of new things and I've really tested myself.
I've really enjoyed my apprenticeship. It's given me a really good start in life at my young age. Being able to earn money and save money at 17 is such a massive thing.
Made quite a few new friends and have enough money to enjoy myself at the weekend.
The guys at JTL have been really supportive and helpful. My boss has been really good, helping me learn as I go along.
It's really good. The tutors are really helpful and very knowledgeable as well.
I've realised it's a lot more difficult than I first imagined, but if you're willing to put in the learning and the effort, it is very rewarding, especially, I mean, the money's alright.
It's been good. I'm learning a lot, I'm learning fast, and hopefully one day I'll be as good as the people that are teaching me.
How to apply. You can apply online, but you will also need to pass JTL's online tests. Details of how to apply online can be found on the JTL website. The best option is for you to find an employer first. Tips on how to find an employer can be found on the JTL website. To find out more about JTL, our apprenticeship programs and how to apply, please visit our website jtltraining.com. Please also like our Facebook and Twitter pages. Thank you for watching this presentation.
Hello everybody and welcome back. Wait for our team to join us. We've had lots of questions coming through on the chat, so it's been keeping Lindsay quite busy, I see. Now the chat, this session is being recorded, as you can see. I'll pop the where you can watch it again. But the questions on the chat box are not being recorded. So I thought we might not go through some of the more specific questions, but talk about them more generally. So I've just dropped in where you can watch us in future. But there were really some quite interesting questions, did you not think, Nikki?
Absolutely. Especially on things like the career progression, for example. I know it's mentioned in the sort of presentation, but there isn't actually any limit when you think about it. You know, there are many of our learners that do go on to be supervisors, managers, and actually even directors. So there's a few companies we work with. Some are actually currently in management training programs who progress through from their apprenticeship. But there are some very large companies we work with where actually all of their executive team have actually come through JTL apprentices in the past, which is fabulous. You can't ask for any more, to be fair. So yeah, without question, there are definitely sort of opportunities. You'll find in most of these businesses, those employers will have all been through an apprenticeship themselves. Not necessarily, obviously, with JTL, but yeah, they will have been through an apprenticeship themselves. I think the other one that I know Lindsay answered, which was Cam's question as well about the level 1 and level 2. I think it's a really, really, really good point. You know, you can come straight in and do a level 3 apprenticeship with us. I do think there's a place for college for doing the level 1 and level 2, with electrical especially, that's really encouraged to do the full-time qualification. And that's say for example, this year you really couldn't find an employer and you couldn't start an apprenticeship because you did not have an employer. Then to start building those skills in something like electrical, and almost evidence to the employer that that is really what you absolutely wanted to do. But you would need to wait till you'd finished your qualification and finished that technical certificate to actually almost convert it into an apprenticeship afterwards. But most of those colleges will encourage you to do a 1 and a level 2 as well. Whereas again, that doesn't apply to us. You can come straight in and do the level 3. We don't actually offer level 2 electrical at all. It is straight in at level 3 for the apprenticeship. The other thing was on, oh, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to, while we were talking about levels before you carried on from the subject, I think for our young listeners who may not always understand what levels refer to what, when we talk about, you know, which levels which, and I think particularly at level 2, we're sort of referring to basically GCSE level. Yes. The English and maths. So I thought maybe you could expand on that a little bit.
Yes. So a level 2 is the equivalent of grade A to C in old language, sort of 4 to 9. I'm doing it the right way around, for the equivalent of grade A to C. And a level 3 is the equivalent of an A level. So that's the kind of level you're working at. It's an interesting one because it stayed at level 3 for very, very many years on electrical, but actually the level of what you're doing is very highly valued. And I would absolutely argue more than an A level. You know,
I agree.
There's no criticism. I just think it's an awful lot of work to call it a level 3, to be fair. But it's industry accepted that's what it is. And it doesn't hold you back in any way, shape or form. It's the industry recognised qualification to be doing. And a lot of employers, only want people who've gone through the apprenticeship pathway, to be fair, because they want to know your time served on site and you've got that practical experience behind you as well, which obviously doing the technical certificate at college is going to be super limited. It's that site experience that's critical.
It's the difference between vocational and academic. I always tell young people
Absolutely.
it's only to help you gauge roughly what it means. But quite often, if you went on to university and did an apprenticeship, you might go down to level 2. But it's not because you're going backwards in your travel. It's because you're starting a new journey at a starting point. And it's, going forward in the numbers, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
You said Lindsay told Leroy that the highest level offered through JTL is level 3,
Mhm.
but apprentices could take the qualifications further to degree or professional qualifications.
Absolutely.
What kind of pathways, what kind of places, careers do these pathways lead to?
Absolutely anything. So you think about, sort of, especially in some of our larger organisations, it's a lot more structured in that respect as well. And I'm not going to encourage you to start with a smaller employer and necessarily then go on to a bigger one, but there's pros and cons of both. So you think somebody has to do all the design work that goes behind it. Some people end up going on to the health and safety side and specialising in that respect. Others might look at procurement and the purchasing of things. Some will, again, be designing and doing all the diagrams. Some will go into the contract management side. There's so many different pathways that you could go into. And I think that's one advantage of doing the apprenticeship as well. You'll touch on all those different elements in all various ways, shapes or forms. And you might find some part of that you really, really enjoy. And that's what you decide you want to specialise in later on. Sometimes it's purely luck, being in the right place at the right time when an opportunity shows itself. And again, maybe you're the person that's engaged, volunteered, offered to help support on a particular job. And that means that, you sort of edge ahead of the competition in terms of those future opportunities as well. So yeah, getting the best range of experience that you can during your apprenticeship without question will definitely lead you onto a more opportune path in the longer term as well. Some people choose to be self-employed longer term as well. So some people decide, they want to go down the pathway of, setting up their own business. But again, you need that experience behind you. And obviously, please don't brag about that to the employer that's taking you on and supporting you and paying your wages and putting you through your apprenticeship. So be mindful of that.
we talked about employers quite a bit, and on the chat right now, there's quite a lot of questions about different employers.
Mm-hmm.
I think really one of the questions is going to be, and kind of a theme that's running through this, is how the apprenticeship works in terms of your relationship with employers,
Mm-hmm.
the types of employers you work with, and the sort of relationship between the study, the training, the getting on and doing the job.
Okay, so the employers first. We have employers who come back to us every single year, or sometimes they'll wait till their one apprentice is finished, then they'll take them on. They'll keep the apprentice they've got to expand their business, and then once that learner's completed, they will move on to the next one. Sometimes they'll do it, if it's a 4-year apprenticeship, every 2 years, so they get to the point where they haven't got to be so hands-on and supporting of that first apprentice. They're able to be more independent, and that's when they'll look to take on another apprentice. You'll also have then your national employers, big house builders, housing associations, sorts of organisations like that have very, very structured programmes and come back and take volumes of learners from us every single year as well. So the types of business are everything from a single person running and managing their business on their own, maybe with a partner doing the accounts and finance. Sometimes it's them doing the whole lot. They're doing their marketing, they're costing jobs, they're, sort of picking you up, taking you to the job, doing absolutely everything themselves. A real range. What you're going to get with that as well is a different range of experiences. So you have to think about what it is you want from it as well. What kind of personality, if do you want to be going out and meeting different people all the time and going to a range of jobs and going to a different city maybe every single week, possibly even every single day? It might be you're on a job for 4 to 6 months. It might be a build of a new development, or a complete refurbishment or a new build of a large commercial premises, and you'll be on the same site for a very long time. It could be you're doing domestic work and you're in and out of 5-6 homes a day. So that range of work that you'll be doing will very much be dependent on the type of employer that you're applying to as well. So do bear that in mind. Again, oh, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Luke is just, Zach, sorry, has just popped on the chat, and a few other people have asked the exact same question about finding those employers. And also, I wanted to chip in, because I think it's interesting, it's not always like an academic year, or maybe it is. I don't know when things start.
It kind of is and it isn't, which sounds like a really fluffy answer. So a lot of colleges will tend to start in September, maybe October. Some also then start in January and very deliberately have a whole new group of learners who start in the January. As a business, because we're a private training provider rather than being a college, we could actually start you throughout the year. So, you know, just say, for example, you were desperate to get in this year, you missed out on September for your local college, but you find an employer who's interested. They might take you on, say, March, April time, and you'll get some practical on-site experience before you start college then in the September. So don't disregard being out of sync with normal college times when you apply. I totally agree with what Will has put in a couple of times, actually. You know, the way to find an employer, and I know again I mentioned it on the slides and the PowerPoint, you can you know, sort of have a look on our website, and there's some support with that. But where Will's put there, to go and look at things like the NEC website, you've got ECA for electrical, you've got a lot of plumbing trade organisations as well. Have a look as if you were a customer. Think about, you know, if you were a customer in your local area and you wanted to find one of those trades to do some work in your home, where would you find them? And guess what? There's a magic list there for you then of potential employers to apply to. And don't forget those national employers as well, because again, they can really be supportive in, you know, literally across the whole country. They don't mind where you're based. You have to be practical about thinking about how you're going to get to college though. So wherever you live, and especially if you live more remotely, having access to wherever the college base is going to be is obviously really important, because that's obviously a really important element of your program as a whole. One thing we didn't mention, and I know you sort of just edged into how it's structured, it can vary. So sometimes you might find you're on what we call day release. So that might mean you're at college 1 day a week throughout the academic year. And, you know, sort of, I don't know, for argument's sake, in year 1, you might be in on a Wednesday, year 2, you might be in on a Friday. It will vary completely. And there's another way that you'll hear the phrase block release. So what that tends to mean is you're in college Monday to Friday for 1 week a month. And again, there are pros and cons of both. And some employers will prefer one above the other, depending on the kind of work they do. The way I sort of give this as an example is, if say you're 16 and you're not driving yet, if they were doing the kind of work, so where we said it varies between doing work in household and doing it locally and then traveling nationally. If you were, I don't know, 1 day in Manchester, another day in London, another day down in Bristol, and you're on day release, how are you going to get back from those locations to make it to college for day release? If that makes sense. So whereas it's block release, that the employer, because the employer will plan work around when they know they have you. It might mean they literally need that second pair of hands to pass them the tools, to pull some cable, to pass them a bit of pipe, whatever it might be. So they'll plan their work around when they know they've got you in the workplace as well. So they might think, brilliant, you're not in with us for the whole of that week. That's when you're at college, and they'll work around it. So it might not be a local college they want you to go to because of that. It might be reflective of whether it's block or day release that they prefer as well.
I think that is a key thing about the attitude about apprenticeships, is because you went, especially with our young audience that are tuned in now, they're still in that school frame of mind and trying to say that this is a step into employment. And the training is training to do a job, and it's hands-on. We had a couple of questions, the inevitable questions about wages, and I think it would be quite good if you talked about what it's like when they're starting, and then where they could go, because I think that's really interesting.
Absolutely. So again, I know that one of my colleagues responded to that one. So you do have minimum wage for apprenticeships. Now, we don't encourage our employers to pay that rate, and there's a lot of unions who are out there who also don't encourage that those rates are paid. They have a totally different scale that they work to, and I think it's £5.24 is the minimum wage that's recommended. Again, they don't have to. So long as you're being paid minimum wage for apprenticeships, they're doing absolutely nothing wrong. But they can start at £5.24, and what that employer will do is, it's recommended that each year you go through your college process and you go through your apprenticeship. That's stepped up slightly and there is guidance to them from the unions on how much they should be paying their apprentices. There are inner London and outer London rates as well, so it will depend on where you live, and it will depend on where you do the work. So it might be you live outside of London, I don't know, you might live in Oxfordshire, Surrey, you might live on the outskirts, but then go into work to London, and again they are asked to consider that as well. So if you're regularly working in London, even if you're not based there, they're expected to support you and pay those London rates as well. And it's the same rate of pay whether you're at college or not as well. So you are getting paid for your college day, and that's really important because that's a common question. If you're out of work place for that day and you're in college, yes, absolutely, you're getting paid for that day as well. The employer is responsible for your full hours, including your college time. So end wages is a whole different ball game, isn't it? So we said in the slides there, we are looking at some really good trades. I'm really proud of what we do in that respect, because I genuinely believe we can be giving you full careers. Like I said, the fact that many of our directors, many of our employers now are ex-apprentices says an awful lot. What a great place to be. There's nothing nicer than going to someone who's trying to take on an apprentice, who's been an apprentice with you beforehand. And sometimes they've got the same training officer, and I'm not even joking, they've got the same member of staff working with JTL who put them through their qualification, and they are now their apprentices training officer as well. Clearly, when we have our staff, they don't like going, they really enjoy what they're doing. But literally, so I gave this example when I've sort of spoken about this before, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. There is an example of a company that, again, I won't name, but their apprentices get paid for absolutely every single thing they do. From the moment they step inside the vehicle in the morning, they're travelling, they're doing their job for the day, their travel time back again, and by the time they complete their apprenticeship and they're in year 4, so this is kind of pre-qualified, before they do their endpoint assessment, they're on £40,000 a year. So it is perfectly possible. You work hard, you work longer hours, because it is one of those industries. You're not you're not looking at 9 to 5 jobs here by any stretch of the imagination. It is possible to earn very well, and while you're apprenticeship. So you could be 20 and on that kind of salary, which is not bad going.
Not bad going at all. And I've just seen Will's just popped in the chat that it's worth mentioning that for this year, which is going to bring me neatly onto my next question, that there are great incentive payments for employers.
Absolutely.
Now, what we're talking about is obviously the impact of COVID. I wanted to talk to you, for you to talk through about the impact on COVID in where your sites are. Remote training, is that a thing?
Yep,
remote
absolutely.
working. I mean, obviously you can't remotely work when you're doing plumbing, but what the impact is. And then he was mentioning these incentives, which presumably is in that same bundle of what the impact of COVID and the rebuild and coming out is all about.
Okay, so from Mr. Johnson's conversation on Monday, they're looking at removing bubbles in the same way over the summer holidays, but there could be an impact on who knows where this might progress moving into the next academic year. What I will say to you is that JTL is ready. So if, for example, either you were to catch COVID, so you weren't very well, if part of your group were caught it, somebody you work with caught it, and there were reasons why maybe you hadn't been double vaccinated. Again, it could be an age reason you're not double vaccinated, and you therefore need to go into isolation. We're certainly working to flip that as soon as we can into what we call a remote delivery, a blended learning. So what we mean is that your classroom delivery side, there's no reason you can't have that. So if you're in a JTL centre, for example, we tend to use Google Classrooms. Some of you might be used to using Google Classrooms or different platforms like Moodle. All sorts of different options are out there that your schools or colleges might have been using already. So we will flip that so we can at least give you that classroom delivery, even if it means you can't do the practical side. That was the reality last year. Obviously, when we had the big lockdown, especially the first one, without question, what that held up was the classroom delivery. You couldn't do the workshop side. So the way most of our programs work, and for those of you who don't like classroom-based work, and we get that, you're roughly looking at a 50-50 split for a lot of our programs. So 50% of your time in college is basically spent doing the knowledge, the sitting there in that classroom delivery. The other 50% of your time is basically in the workshop, learning practical skills and doing those practical activities. Clearly we can flip that so you can do the knowledge online. You can't do the practical though. So it did kind of shift things up a little bit, but you know, our staff and the colleges we work with as well, they're very experienced. They understand where you are with your learning. And what we had to do was basically flip that when everybody came back and almost, I don't know, sort of shunt a lot of the practical learning back together again, as well as a bit of recap on some of that learning as well, because it had been a while since people had been back in that classroom. But rest assured, it will not stop you getting qualified. It might delay it a little bit. There's no denial, especially if somebody was towards the end of their program, because again, realistically, we don't know how long this is going to go on for. But yeah, do just bear that in mind. So do think about how you'd access that device-wise as well. You know, we do ask employers to support, but that might be difficult if they're a very small employer. But most of what we do is accessible from any device. So we're making sure that a lot of our online content you could get from a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, you know, whatever resource you had available. But we do also appreciate that not everybody's got internet access as well. And if you are struggling, what we would say is speak to your training officer, and we will look at what alternative options we have. And sometimes we brought smaller groups into the site as well to work with them when we knew they were struggling even just with working online. So we will work with you however we need to, but we do supply you with toolkits. That might sound strange. We do work with you and supply free toolkits. They come to you after about the 3rd month of being on program. We're obviously not going to give it to everybody on day one because they just go, bye, see ya, and go off with the toolkit. So, you know, but just do bear that in mind. And again, your training officer is happy to explain what the content of that is. So if you're looking at maybe what you purchase, to start building your own tools, it might be that you can borrow some things initially for that first couple of months rather than going out and buying everything from scratch, because A, you probably can't afford to at that point. Tools are expensive, but also by that time you'll have a much better idea of what you really do need as well. And that will grow as your knowledge base grows and your experience grows and the tasks you're able to do across your program as well. And there is a different one for the plumbing and a different toolkit for the electrical as well. So we do actually provide different content in those depending on what program you're following. But yeah, we will support with your toolkit.
It's exciting to see, and I think that actually for many employers across many sectors, a blended learning may be the future anyway. And carry on. I'd like to move along a little bit, the traditional question in these sorts of circumstances. I'm pleased to see so many women on the chat. This is a traditionally male-dominated sector, but I'd like you to talk about how this has been changing and what the opportunities are for women in the sector.
It's absolutely something that we encourage. And again, I noticed some of those questions coming through very early on those sort of on the chat as well, which was brilliant to see. Again, absolutely. It does tend to be a more male orientated environment. I can't even get my words out. But that doesn't mean that it's not perfectly possible. What I tend to find is that the females work exceptionally hard because they almost feel like they've got to prove themselves and actually do exceptionally well. Some of our best apprentices have been female. We do annual awards, we do regional award ceremonies, we do annual awards. We also get involved in national competitions as well. So world skills events, things like that. We do actively encourage our apprentices to involve. And again, it's really nice when you see that sort of representation from the females as well. I think it's one of the reasons we try and encourage, even on our videos, that the female learners we've got to actually show that it is for both sexes and that actually it's for anyone. Regardless of your gender identity, it's a perfectly practical thing for anyone to do. Again, I do think you have to have something about you to be in a male environment all the time. It is very different, but you'll also find it's very different when there's a female in the group. And a lot of very male focused groups will say that they even speak to each other differently when there's a female in the group. It's very interesting, the dynamics, without going into the psychology of how these things work, but it is true. I find that, you'll find people in your workplace will be very respectful. And again, from an equality and diversity respect, it's obviously something we take it very, very seriously as well. And we will reiterate to all our own staff, to all of you as learners, but also to employers as well. But actually, I find females, if I use the example of a housing association, a housing association is desperate to have more females, because you might be going into a single females household, for example, who might feel vulnerable and might not want a male going into their home to do the work. So actually there can be an awful lot of opportunities in one of those positive discrimination phrase kind of ways, but there can be advantages because there is a shortage of females within the sector, and that's obviously widely known through whatever industry it is that you go into when you're looking at building services engineering. So yeah, do not be afraid to apply. Again, there are employers out there who will deliberately try and seek out female applicants. So yeah, go for it.
Brilliant. And I'm glad that you touched on the diversity and inclusion too, which is really important, because a lot
Absolutely.
of what plumbers and electricians do is being part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we come across quite a lot with schools and young people saying that they don't find out much about doing an apprenticeship rather than going to university.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the arguments that's always put across is you won't get the university experience. And I know what I feel about this, because we deal with people in the apprenticeship sector every day, and I think there's lots of ways that it's different, but doesn't mean not as great. And I thought maybe you could talk about, particularly JTL. I know you mentioned a few things that you do to get people involved and support your employees, and apprenticeships doing all sorts of things.
I think that it's a really good point, that that there are the advantages that are obvious, like you're not going to have the debt from going into university, but I think just from a career progression respect as well. So if you think of that example I gave of those learners who, so even if we use the basic 32,000 for a qualified electrician example, you are going to be on that salary before your counterparts are even leaving university. That says everything. You've also got 4 years more practical experience.
That, can't you?
Absolutely. But you've also got that practical experience as well. The fact that you've been paid while you've been working through this as well. You might still be at home. You might have decided you want to live independently. But there's an opportunity you might have been able to save during that time as well. You might already be driving. You might already have your own vehicle, where again, your counterparts will just be starting out with a heap load of debt behind them. I'm not saying that university isn't the right option. And actually, I know that Sharon said this earlier on, and it was said on the slides, university can be an option afterwards, but guess what? There might well be opportunities that you get funded to do that by your employer by going through an apprenticeship pathway. So you might still end up with a degree, which can have a massive impact later on your salaries as well. And, for some job roles, you might find there's an expectation of being taught to degree level, but that doesn't mean you can't do it while you're working. And again, guess what? You're not going to have the debt. But also, if that employer is investing in you and putting through your university degree, it's likely they'll have an expectation that you'll stay with them for longer as well. Sometimes there are caveats within contracts that if they put you through a degree, they expect you to stay for at least 2 or 3 years afterwards, because they want to see that value almost coming back into that workplace. But if that's a workplace you're enjoying and you're happy to commit to that, then absolutely, why wouldn't you do that? There's almost no reason not to, I suppose, unless you really don't enjoy learning. But the fact that that can have an increase in your pay and your progression prospects afterwards, and you don't have to pay for it as well. I'm not going to say that's going to work for everybody. Some people might leave the workplace and decide they want to go to university full time and fund it themselves and choose a very specific pathway. So, there's nothing to say you can't do that either. That's actually what I did. So I went into the workplace, worked for a few years, went to university afterwards independently, and then returned back to the workplace afterwards. But I went as a mature student to university. Nothing to say you can't do that at all. It's open. It really is.
And there's no reason to say that you have to be a school leaver to do an apprentice either. No. I think I know quite a lot of people who got to dissatisfied with their career and wanted to be a career changer, and taken this kind of step into your world, which has been fantastic, particularly in a tough world we're in at the moment.
Absolutely. And I think the rules have changed a lot over that as well. Years ago, you wouldn't have been able to do one over sort of, at points it's been 19, at points it's been 25. Now there are no holds barred. Absolutely. I personally have signed up people who are 56, 58 to start their apprenticeship. Nothing wrong with that at all. If your employer is willing to support, why not?
Well, brilliant. I think we've covered all the kind of topics that have come up. But before we say, kind of start wrapping up, I thought I'd just give you, if you had anything in particular that you felt wasn't covered that you wanted to say. If not, then we can bring back both Lindsay and Will and say a round of farewells before the football match tonight. But I just want to check if there's anything left that we might have missed.
I would just like to say that, I know our website's been put on there a couple of times, but don't be afraid to go onto the website, which is www.jtltraining.com. There is guidance there on the application process, exactly as was answered within that chat. You can do that at any point in the year. You might be starting year 11 from September, that's not a problem. And you might be planning your 55th birthday next week. That's not a problem either. At whatever point it's right for you, feel free to go onto the website and apply. That there's a free phone number for our admin centre on there as well. There's a sort of info kind of email address for questions as well. Do not be afraid to ask. It's completely open all throughout the year for you to apply. Obviously, the earlier you apply for the academic year, the easier that's going to be, and hopefully you might get in there with some of the employers a bit quicker as well. Some start as early as December for recruitment for the next September. So if that gives you a little bit of a steer as to, some of the bigger employers, they're really structured in their approach to recruitment. So don't be afraid to apply early as well, and keep your eye out on what your local businesses are doing. Some will put it on their own website as well. So they'll advertise their apprenticeship programs on their website. So go and have a nose.
Yeah, well, I would like to say as well, when it has come up a lot of times, people asking about where to look, and we're partners with JTL, and their jobs are on our site as well, and you can use our search function as well to see where the different opportunities are and the different training that's available too, which I've just popped into the chat. Right, so if Lindsay and Will would like to join us. Hiya, Lindsay, working busily in the background there, and you too. Well, my goodness, there have been lots of conversations going on. It's been great to see such a high-level engagement. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's been good.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for all your questions, everyone.
Excellent.
Has anyone got any last questions?
Are you guys getting ready to go? It's been...
Is there something else happening this evening?
I don't know what could be going on. But thank you, guys. Thank you to everybody who's joined us in the audience. You guys have been great. All sorts of really, really engaged questions. And like I said, an hour before kickoff too. Amazing. And I'd like to say very much big thank you, because obviously this was a really hot topic. We had lots and lots of young people who've joined us. And I know from our social, we've had lots of engagement too. I think it's a really good sector to be thinking about, not just for now, but for a really, secure and profitable, from everything that you're saying, career for the future and lots of progression. So I'm going to do a little round robin for you guys to say your farewell. So Nikki, any last words from you or a farewell from you?
Again, good luck for this evening, regardless of which team you support. And you know where we are if you have any further questions. Don't be afraid to ask. I think it's the important thing to say.
Right. Nikki, do you have, Lindsay, do you have anything to say?
No, just best of luck.
I'd
just like to say best of luck with your future careers, whatever it is you decide to do. Yeah. Good luck, everyone.
Brilliant. And Will, last words?
Yeah, I would just say it seems to be a really good year to get on board with an electrical or plumbing firm. Really good year for grants. You can claim up to £4,000 if you take on an apprentice this year. And it seems like the construction industry is really booming at the moment. So I think my advice is just speak to some employers, pass your JTL assessments. And if you get anyone who's interested in taking you on, just get in touch with us and we'll do the rest.
Brilliant. Right, everybody. Well, it's nice to see all the thanks. Thank you. And everybody have a really good evening. So it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Team JTL.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.